Hello, welcome to Becky's House of Sewing. I am Becky. This is my house of sewing, which is quite in disarray because of this bad boy. It's been about a little over 2 weeks. I'm not recording on my normal day, mostly because I could feel the pressure from my neighbors, the Petersons. Ron and Connie, I can feel them emanating, going, "Where's our floss tube?" May or may not be true. I haven't gotten a text message in a while, but I don't think that is diminishing the ability of Ron's pressure. So this is Monday at like 5 o'clock. And I have wanted to do a video. It just hasn't come together. So here it is. And I've got things to share. Where do I start? Let's start with this. I really thought that this was going to be on the board the last time I recorded, or the next time I recorded, but I got the darn thing done. So this is a quilt out of some of the fabrics that I've been sorting and such. These were pre-cut sizes. I believe they were 4.5 inch squares, so they finished 4 inches in theory. They weren't perfectly cut. They also weren't perfectly sewn, so there you have it. So it's just a classic 4 patch. So I sewed 2 together, then I sewed 4 together, and then I sewed 4s and 4s and 4s, and then I sewed the rows. Let's see if I can stand up. Show it to you. Obviously, you're not going to see all of it, but I got it quilted and everything, people. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself. Here's the back. I still have more squares. But I pieced the back together because I don't have any 108 inch wide fabrics, which is referred to as a wide back run. But I have plenty, as I showed you last week, plenty of yardage. So I just pieced together a back. So honestly, it's like I made 2 quilts. And I just kept it simple as far as the quilting. See if I can get up close. I didn't quite do stitch in the ditch. Ron, I'm sure you're asking. Stitch in the ditch is where you get closer to the seam. A lot of people, quilting techniques have been updated, and as quilting machines get more powerful, smaller stitches, tighter stitches, it's not as important. I mean, seams are always important, but pressing your seams in certain directions is not as necessary to protect your seams anymore, if that makes any sense at all. So a lot of people will, when you're making the block, let's get back to our 4 patches. See if I can show you. It might be easier on the back. I don't know what's going to be easier. Let's just struggle through it for a little bit, shall we? Alright, so 4 patch. Some people would sew, oh my goodness. Let's start this way first. Do you know the difference between ironing and pressing? Ironing is kind of putting pressure and moving the fabric, sometimes distorting the fabric, where pressing, you're just putting the hot iron and pressing down. So, so many threads. So as you are making your quilting top, and that is called patchwork. Is it called that? I think that's what it's called. Oh my God, I just got done with work. I'm really sorry. All right, so pressing your seams either to the dark side, which is a common way to do it, especially in years gone by, pressing your seams to the dark side of the fabric, so light and dark, so you'd press it to this direction, allowed your seams and your stitches to kind of be a little more protected. And so in this scenario, that's kind of what I did, so that these two can nest, because you want to protect yourself from bulk. You don't want your seams to get overly bulky. So you want your top to be as flat as possible. So you want your seams to work that way. And sometimes pressing your seams opens works, and sometimes pressing them to one side or the other so they can nest. And I don't think I'm going to have a good example. I should have been a little more prepared in that. So what I did is I pressed to the dark side. So if we're looking at this, let's see if I can, there we go. That way I don't have, the struggle doesn't have to be as real. So on this block, I pressed the seams to the brown, and on this block, I pressed the seams, I guess that's also brown, but it's like the floral one. I pressed it to the darker floral one. So when I laid these together, right sides together, the bulky part of the seam was on opposite sides, which allowed it to be more flat and kind of an easier way to line up so that this can be perfectly square. I hope that makes sense to those who don't quilt. So stitching in the ditch would be when you would stitch a little bit beyond the seam, and you would be stitching that extra bulk down so that it wouldn't go anywhere. So you're actually kind of protecting your seam a little bit. Now this is a little further out. This is a little bit beyond where the bulk is. But I still think it looks pretty. And it's fast and easy. I would like very much to be a free motion quilter. And I'm going to be honest. I played a little bit with Ron and Connie at the quilt show on one of those long arm machines, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's like drawing with a big pencil, with a 40-pound pencil. But right now, with my domestic machine, oh, I have threads everywhere. I have threads on this bad boy I need to take care of. I took care of the long ones I buried my threads on the front, but not on the back. It's an excellent reminder. I'm not going to be able to stop playing with this. I apologize. Okay. Taken care of. Okay. Right now, I enjoy using my walking foot, which, oh my goodness, I just threw my bobbins on the floor. Here is a version of a walking foot. Do you see that? This is for my Janome. They have what they call a high performance or HP foot, and this is the walking HP foot. It only means something to the lovely Janome owners. The HP aligns the needle more directly in front of the bobbin, which makes it a very straight and consistent stitch for a high performance situation. So if you look, see how the needle, when the needle goes down, Ron, you know how to sew, you know sewing machines. So as the needle goes down on the foot, you see that little extra foot action that helps feed as an extra feed dog essentially on the foot of the sewing machine. There are also feed dogs on the bottom, so when you are sewing bulky things, and Ron, you might have done this on leather or upholstery, put in the comments if you have. It helps bring all three layers in at the same time instead of bringing the bottom layer that has the feed dogs in faster than the top. So it kind of keeps the sandwich together in a smooth and consistent fashion. I have this HP foot, but I used my normal wider one because I also wanted to use a zigzag. I used the zigzag while applying, oh gosh, oh, ugh. This is a big quilt for a donation quilt. My binding skills are not where I want them to be, but I am learning, and that is fine. So, the binding, let's see if I can get the back of it. I sewed it down with a zigzag stitch because honestly, when I get to the binding, by this point, I just want to be done. So machine binding is the way I typically do it. I'm not afraid of hand binding it, which usually means that you use a sewing machine to sew it down on the front, and then you flip it over on the back and you hand sew it in kind of a blind stitch along so that you can line it up a little bit better. And what that does is that eliminates this very not straight stitch, because I was following the binding on the back. Because ideally this would be a little closer to the seam and everything would lie perfectly. But this quilt is not perfectly square and it is not perfectly completed. It is made with lots of love, and it will be donated through the Charlotte Quilters Guild to hopefully somebody in the hospital that needs to be wrapped in love as they get better. So that's where it's going to go. I was able to use some old batting that I needed to get rid of. And see, gosh, that string, I wanted to show you the label. That's the only thing I haven't fully completed. I'm using a blanket stitch to attach it to the corner, the bottom corner. So I just have a little bit more to do, but I think I can fairly show this to you and call it done. So at the next Quilt Guild, I can donate it and it can join the flash. The flash is every month we have a quilt flash of all the donated quilts. So we kind of just walk around in a circle and count them off. So yeah, like the first person is 1, 2, and we hold the quilts up to let everybody see. Kind of fun. You know, if you're into that kind of thing. So I'm very pleased. I got a whole quilt done in like 2 weeks, people. That's pretty cool. I'm glad I found all that stuff. So I have more material in the same colorway. I think cut at the same time by whoever I got this from. I got these pieces of fabric from a lady's mother had passed away, and I went in and kind of had a quilting estate sale. So I got these pre-cuts, and I also, the other ones I got were longer. I think they're 12 by 4 rectangles. Oh, excuse me. So we'll see. I'll probably whip that one up too. So hopefully next 2 weeks I'll have something else to show you. Isn't that exciting? All right. While I'm on the quilting vein, let me show you the other exciting things. So I was able to go to Quilt Guild last Wednesday. And I wanted to go for a couple of reasons. Wednesday is usually the day I go to my mother-in-law's for dinner, because that's when I'm off. And occasionally I go to the meetings instead. Meetings are only once a month, so I can skip out of one and everyone understands. But it was the month after the quilt show, so they were reviewing the awards and all that stuff, and there was food. But it was so much fun because not only a quilt guild is just where I feel most at home. Without lack of explanation in a different way. When I walked into the Quilt Guild for the first time, even though I only knew a couple people just barely, and that was because they were my customers at the Container Store, and they forced me to come. um, but I immediately felt at home and inspired, and it was great fun. But when I was walking up, I had another friend of mine who's been taking classes with somebody I know from the guild. And so this was her first month, so I was very excited to sit next to her and help her through her first meeting, because it's always scary going into a new place, a new meeting, and not really knowing anyone. Always good to have a wingman. So I knew that was happening, and I had talked at the show to a couple of the quilters, the two ladies that forced me to join the guild, and Ann Davis and Nancy DeBerry. They had inherited some antique quilt squares. Nancy's aunt, who died at 101, had some quilt blocks, and as her children were cleaning out her stuff, they passed these on to Nancy, and Nancy's like, well, I don't know what to do with them. So she cut some of them up, because some of them were unfinished or missing components and things like that. So she made pillows out of what she could salvage, and then had these left over. And I said, and she didn't know what she was going to do with them. I'm like, well, if you don't want them, I'll take them. I don't want antique quilt squares to go without a home. So I had an inkling that she might bring them, so I wanted to come. And then I had another friend of mine, Linda, who I had mentioned I was looking for some brown fabrics, because I have a quilt in mind that I like to make with them. And so she said, well, I just cleaned some out and I think I have some. So she brought them as well. So let me show you. I'm in love with this one antique quilt square, and then the other is kind of satiny and polyester-ish, so I don't know what I'll do with those, but look at this. Oh, isn't that cool? So it's missing, this is missing a section here. There's two that are missing a section, but let me show you the back. Some of this is hand done and some of this is machine stitched. Do you see that? Isn't that cool? So I have one square like this, another square like this, a little hole in it. Like one of these you could clearly see some hand stitching, but I don't know. But then I have a whole section of this looks like 6 of them put together. Isn't that amazing? So fun. I could probably make a wall hanging out of this one. It would go nicely in my house. I have a lot of greens and yellows. Let me move this over here so I can get the polyester satiny one out. So this, and I don't know if you can tell, this is all satiny. And I guess you can see some of the stitches there. So these are, you know, I got lots of this. Not in the best of conditions, but surely I can get them out and admire them. Fold them in different directions so they can get some of those creases out. So yeah, how fun is that? So I got a big baggie full of old quilt stuff. So fun. And then these are the lighter tan colors of the browns that my friend gave me. Isn't that lovely? I like that one a lot. And I like the geometric. So, official thank you. Sorry as I wobble the table, make everybody sick. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Linda. Big time, felt good. I was very jazzed. The other thing I made in the last 2 weeks, I don't think I showed last time, is I made a new project bag. I made it out of Lori Holt's material, added a couple labels, little one-of-a-kind action there, and then I had some labels made of Becky's House of Sewing. They're not my favorite, but they're my first ones, so I can use them up. I used on the back, so this is what we fondly call cheater cloth, which means it looks like it's piece, but it's really just one print. This is the front of it, and then I just kind of sewed around to make it look a little more pieced together on the back. Did my vinyl, because I really like the vinyl. I just think everything came together on this. The only thing I'm uncertain about, and I haven't played with it yet, so I'll let you know, is at the top, because I wanted to see more of the flower, I made this a little bit longer, which may make it a little harder to put stuff in it, but this too shall pass. Alright, so as far as cross stitch goes, I did do some cross stitch. I worked on Wilbur, which my phone is charging, and so I didn't bring it in to show you the pattern. But we all know what Wilbur looks like from Charlotte's Web, and I made a little more progress on him. Well, I'm going to need my board again. Sorry if I'm wiggling the table. He's not ironed, you're welcome. So he's coming along. I worked on him a little bit. Isn't he cute? So he's not going to be much. Oh, goodness gracious. How embarrassing. He's not going to be much bigger. He just has his little chin and torso. And then the square, it's a square box in black that goes around. So I've worked on him a little bit. Remember, Ron, I talked about a lot of confetti stitching. Fold that a different way. Put him back in. I made a little, this is my Project Rabbit sew-along bag, but I made owl bags. So that's one thing. And then I've had a disaster, and my stitching came to a complete stop on Wednesday. So, I've been working on this. A peacock, a unicorn, and a badger. I am working on this part up here. And, you know, this is ginormous. It's a big project. I made a mistake in the bird, which I was fine. Pull it together. There's lots of, you know, background to stitch. So, just move on. But as I moved on, I made a mistake in the flower here too, which will then have an issue going all the way down. I feel like I need to unstitch. So let me show you. So once I realized my mistake, I neatly ended my thread, folded it. Oh no, I didn't even end the thread. I just folded it back up and put it back in the thing. Let it think about what it was doing. So essentially what has happened is that this whole flower is one higher. And this little bud First of all, isn't that stitching beautiful? I've also missed some of the antennae up here on the bee, but I don't care. I can let that go too. So right here on this bud, see where the brown outline is? There's supposed to be a brown outline between the green stem and the rose bud, or the flower bud, which means all of this below is one stitch too high. The bird is already one stitch off on the bottom, so now the legs won't fit there. But more importantly, like, I feel like that's going to make this whole tree limb off, and again, I don't mind having something off or in the wrong place, but I think this is going to set into motion something too great for me to remember for a long period of time, if that makes sense. So when this occurred on Wednesday, like I said, I sighed heavily. I didn't interrupt the conversation. I just folded it neatly and put it away. Got my computer out and started searching for the magic Lori Holt Unstitcher. I thought this was going to be a lot bigger than it was. And it sold out in a lot of places. Where did I find this? The Stitchy Cow, I want to say. I just did a Google search for it after Missouri Star didn't have it and the Fat Quarter Shop was out. So some of my regular haunts didn't have it, so I went, I'm doing an unboxing right now. Isn't that exciting? So tonight, I will be unpicking so that I can restart. And so this is a little bit different than a seam ripper. Here, let's see if I can. Where's all my stuff? Why do I keep putting stuff away and I can't find it? Why? Hashtag life. Okay. So here is the seam ripper, the unstitcher. You can see it's not very big. Mia, leave my bag alone. Don't dig at my bag. Mommy doesn't like that. So this is, it's just a little thicker of a needle with a bigger handle, a little more ergonomically correct. So when you're unpicking, you're not bending your needle. Who hasn't done that while unpicking? But also saving your fingers a little bit because it's a little thicker to grab onto. I will give you a full and unbiased review on Becky's next House of Sewing. But because nothing should ship alone, I didn't want this to be lonely in the box by itself. I thought I was buying a pattern, but apparently I'm not. It's just the cutest little chicken. It's a little chicken pin cushion. He's heavy. He must be full of walnut seed. He's a little heavy. Bark, bark, bark. Isn't he cute? So I couldn't pick the color, but I also thought I was picking a pattern. So when I got this, I was like, I thought this was a pattern. Sadly, no. But the other thing that was in the mail today. Quilt Folk 26. It smells of new book. This comes, if you are not familiar with Quilt Folk, it is a very large, see how big it is, magazine with no advertisements. I kind of appreciate that, but kind of an ad junkie, so I miss the ads. But so these are all articles and beautiful pictures. Look at this. Look at that picture. Look at this back. And they pick a state. This one is Mississippi. And they do a call. They find out a lot of information, historical information, local information, and they do some deep dives on individual quilters. Look at this. Isn't that cool? So I'm very excited to curl up with some tea tonight and dig into this. Like I said, this comes like signed, sealed, and delivered. It has a very matte feel to it. It has nice thick paper. So you're buying like a quality book. And it comes quarterly. And it's not inexpensive. It's like $75 a year. But great inspiration. And what I have just discovered is that they're starting to do Quilt Folk special editions that are not part of your subscription. And the first one is on dog portraits, which is pretty impressive. And one of I'm going to call her my friend. She doesn't know me, but we're friends. One of the podcasters that I listen to has been chosen for that episode, so for that issue, for the Quilt Folk dogs. So I might have to order that, but I have not as yet. So that is what I've been up to lately. I do have remnants of this quilt that I finished all over, so I do need to clean up and put back. I have batting everywhere, pieces of batting everywhere that I have been trying to find one that would fit my quilt, because I was like, surely out of all this batting, again, I'm trying to use what I have, kind of continue to get condensed down. But I'm excited with this quilt. I feel like I've made some good steps forward. I do have a couple quilts that I want to make for other people that I know, as well as more donation quilts. So I foresee some more quilting in my future. I ordered new glasses. Went to the eye doctor for the first time in like a couple years. I don't have bad eyesight, but as an almost 50-year-old, I'm going to say that. I'll be 49 in July. Transitions are not as sharp as they once were. So, like focusing on the computer or reading and then looking up and trying to see something far away is not always as easy for me. Because I'm almost 50. Mom, how do you feel about that? So I ordered new glasses, so I'm excited to don some glasses maybe. Maybe I won't wear them during Flosstubes because of the light and the glare, but that's where we're headed. I asked about glasses for my sewing, and the eye doctor said, what you're doing is very specialized, so what your readers are working just fine. So I'm like, okie dokie. So me and Mr. Chicken, we're gonna go head out and read some Quilt Folk. I was gonna reenact something, but I don't need to do that. So I'm gonna do some unpicking. I'm gonna do some reading. I'm gonna redo that darn flower. So by next week, I'm going to have that flower in the right place, gosh darn it. People are going to like it. So that's kind of my goals for the next couple of weeks. And I'm looking forward to it. Got lots of good stitching. I will be on vacation in 2 weeks, and I might be taking an online class on how to maintenance my machine by myself. been one to like tinker with things, mechanical things, or take things apart, and my parents watch this so they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've been a tinkerer. But I do love a good tool. I've always enjoyed tools, not that I've been able to really use them for anything. So I'm looking forward to learning how to maintenance my own machine. And I don't know, maybe maintenance my friends' machines. And then maybe maintenance people I don't know's machines. Maybe find some cheap machines online and maintenance those and resell them. There are ideas turning around in here. So those are my thoughts. I hope you guys have a good few days or week and a half or 2 weeks or so, and get lots of sewing or quilting or crafting or woodworking or anything that makes you happy, and spend some time doing it. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.